I am the son of the soil, a brother to the daughters of the land. I do not have perfumed lips, but I speak the truth. I do not have catch eyes, but I can see the true colors of my nation. I do not have a dog nose, but I can smell and distinguish between carbon monoxide and oxygen. Yes, I am the son of the soil, a brother to the daughters of the land. I may not have catch eyes, but I can see the true colors of the continent. I may not have a big heart, but I do have passion. Passion for my people, passion for my country, passion for the continent, and passion for the world over. I may not have the soft hands, but I can do my little bit and deliver my people from shame. Vertically, I am the son of the soil. Vertically, I am a brother to the daughters of the land. Son of the soil, son of the soil, son of the soil.
No more, no more, no more, no more, no more, no more,
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I did not announce the topic for today, and I think I found the topic while I was having a shower. I thought actually there would be great something to talk about. And I'm hoping, so this one is not prepared. Usually I write down notes. So in this conversation this morning, I didn't write down notes. So it's gonna be off the cuff. I am going to make it as short as possible because I don't want to go overboard in my thoughts and conversations. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, gentlemen. This is for Men Conversations. And this morning, I would like to talk about fathering daughters in an anti-Black society, in an anti-Black world. And I think it's necessary based on some of the stats that we have around in our communities, in the world around us, and just the nervous condition of being a Black woman. When we talk about the raising of kids, I find that we often put women at the fore, like we say, women are nurturers, and that they're the ones that are raising the kids. And we seldom talk about or speak about the role that men do play or can play in that same space. And I want to zone in on a conversation around men empowering their daughters more in terms of the world that we find ourselves in. If we look at the stats, women, especially Black women, locally in South Africa and also in the world around us, they're the most disadvantaged in terms of there's white privilege, there's male privilege, and everything else around that. There's patriarchy, there's everything else around that. But zoning it in because I want to focus on relationships and also how relationships with our fathers and the role that our fathers can play. I was having a conversation yesterday with a lady on inbox and how afraid she is for her child that a potential partner could rape or molest the child in any particular way. And I had a moment to think about this more yesterday and also this morning, and I realized, wait a minute, there are certain conversations that men are actually run away from having with their daughters, or there are certain conversations and topics that fathers should be having more with their daughters based on your understanding of the male species and equip your daughters more, but most of you guys are not having those conversations, and that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Now, based a lot of coach relationships, or the way that's able to evade at a young age was because father certain able to occupy my mind and thoughts with constructive things that then took my attention away from everything else that could have taken my attention away. But there's one thing that he could not me though, or my parents could not protect me though, was being molested as a young child. But I noticed now that I'm older, that a lot of the men that had some eyes and certain comments, if I have this conversation, I'm old enough so I can have it, that I can talk about this experience. So I noticed that a lot of the men were known to they might not have been close friends, but they were acquaintances. And as such, as a child, I was familiar with those men. As such, when one of them made a sexual advance, I think I was 6, 7, 8 years of age, I was pretty young. I thought he was a safe space because he was known in the family. And growing up, and the more I worked with teenagers and the more I worked with preteens, I realized, and even having conversations with my friends, I realized that the most common around our experiences and being sexually molested by men was that they're known to our fathers, or they were known to perhaps we didn't speak because molesters have kids to not speak. They have a way of grooming kids to not alert the person, because the men know that if the father of the house knows about things, then all hell will break loose. So the conversation or the questions I want to ask gentlemen is, why is it so difficult for you guys to equip your daughters with the truth, more so when you know how other men interact with each other around the sex topic and the lack of self-control and all of that? Why is it, because when I speak to other gentlemen around this, I find that the easiest approach that most men take is not to bring their friends around in their space, those who are highly aware. They don't bring their friends around there. The approach that some men have taken, they don't bring their friends or acquaintances around their kids because they don't know who to trust. Also, I realized that also some men kind of know that most men have zero barriers around this topic, and as such, what they then tend to do is just to keep them away, and then they spend more time outside. I think that's taking the easy way out, though. I think that is taking the easy way out, because then you're not having the right conversations with your friends. You are not having the right conversations with your acquaintances that says, gentlemen, my kids are off. Like, don't look at my kids. Because then when you have that verbal conversation, it's going to spark the other guys also to look at their own selves and their own children and realize, wait, if there's 5 or 7 of us in this room, and we are all have daughters, should we not then talk about how are we going to protect our children from the male species, because it's them who are raping the kids the most. South Africa has a high rate of rape and sexual molestation of kids. It's or so-called men that are, it's not strangers that I'm trying to say, it's not strangers, it's people from the family, it's people from our community, it's neighbors, it's friends, it's people around us. So I'm asking, gentlemen, why is it difficult for you to have these open conversations with your friends to say, gents, our kids, how do we protect our children more in terms of preserving their innocence so that they are at the stage where they can make those decisions on their own? I'm going to check the comments because I really want to know, one, why is it difficult for you to have this conversation with your friends? And secondly, how come you're not empowering your girls when it comes to dating, sex, and otherwise? And I'm saying this because each time I ask parents in my space, because we have camps, and in our camps we talk about puberty, and we talk about pregnancy, we talk about sex, and everything else in between. It's a holistic approach so that kids have an informed approach to everything. And each time I have conversations with parents, I realize that often it's the mothers who play the role or who attempt to teach the kids about these things. Most of the time, men just do not even want to talk about that conversation or that topic at all. They don't want to talk about it. In most cases, they don't even want to think of the possibility that their daughters might date one day. They don't even want to think about it. So what then most fathers tend to do, they tend to move to the control type of parenting, where they say, I'm going to make sure that my daughter does not date any boys. And then that control moves to confining your daughter to certain spaces and not talking and watching them like a hawk, and which creates other problems. So I'm saying to you, gentlemen, and I'm challenging you that those two approaches are the wrong way of tackling things. You are not parenting. You're running away from parenting. You're running away from parenting. And this is me saying we need a different approach, because most of these men who are molesting your kids are known to you and are your friends, or are your acquaintances, or it's the gentleman next door, or da 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 da. More so when you're absent because you're not there. And what I've noticed in my communities, because I grew up in a village and in townships, I noticed that in most of our Black communities, the house that has no male figure gets undermined. The male figure, the house that has no male figure or male support gets undermined. That who's going to be there to protect the kids get preyed upon the most. Kids get preyed upon the most. When you speak about men who groom kids, when you speak about men who groom mothers of daughters, we speak about men who are aware that there's no protection in place in this house, because even now, 22, men are still seen as the protectors of families. So when they are not there, all the other men come to say, what can we take from this family? Inclusive of taking kids' innocence, inclusive of taking things not supposed to be taken by them. So I'm just going to take my comments and see. I'm just going to check my comments and see. So this is my call to fathers to say, if you have a daughter, it's your ultimate responsibility to protect your daughter at all costs. It's your ultimate responsibility to protect your daughter at all costs. And by protecting them, I mean, shielding them from your friends is not the only way. You have to equip your kids with knowledge and understanding of the male species around them. I'll give an example of what I think worked, which my father did with me, because I spent most of my time with my dad. And you guys know, Guti, I used to follow my dad around also shippings and stuff. That was my place. And one of my friends asked, but were you safe in these shippings? And I'll say, actually, yes, I was quite safe, because my dad, in the shipping space, he was very verbal about protecting his kids. Even my sisters, where we were staying in our community, my dad was very verbal and very loud about protecting his kids and about loving his kids. Most of the men knew that in that community. The ones that preyed on me were actually a family. Was one, he passed away though, was one family member plus a friend of his who would come ekhaya because kwakuselwa, and so they were a community type of guys. They were not really close friends, but ezilalini most abantu can gravitate around and make themselves familiar in a way. So when we grew, the more we grew, and we went to stay with my dad for a time, the more my dad was verbal about protecting us and about shielding us. And by that time, the other guy had passed away, and the other one also kind of passed away along the line. So most of the guys who molested me, they died, and I don't even feel bad about it because what they did was uncalled for. But this topic is around fathers and how they father their daughters. One of the things my dad did very well was to occupy my mind with knowledge and to fill my mind with knowledge, and also to fill my life with his presence. When I was a teen, it was common in my family for my dad to buy newspapers and give me newspaper to read so that I'm aware of what's happening around, and also to occupy my mind and say, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? My dad was a lecturer, and therefore he was in the education space. So education was highly important to him. So what he would also do, because most of us, we are readers at home, he would get us books. We would read books, and then he would want to know what we learned from that book. That was occupying us, occupying our minds with intelligence and information, as well as his presence. And as such, when I started being a preteen teen, I wasn't drawn much to boys because I just felt that they were clueless and unnecessary. I felt that boys were clueless. Spending with my dad, and as such, boys who wanted my attention just didn't care. And also, one of the things my dad did very well with me, validation, like praise and validation. When I was younger, I was much more darker than I am now, and I was more like him than my sisters. My sisters are more like my mom; they are light-skinned and different, and as such, I was the only girl who was dark. So my dad was very intentional about saying umhle ofana notatakho, umhle, and so and as such, it was very that I'm beautiful and I'm so like my dad, and that's powerful. And because he was fully present, and because he was the kind of father who was very huggy, my dad is a hugger. He hugs and he kisses and he does all those things. I enjoyed that association with him because of the qualities that I loved about him. And as such, when I met boys at Stradbroke City, oh, son, Sam, because I was like, what? Like, why would you send him clothes if I don't know already? It sounded arrogant, but as a child, that protected me from a lot of things, from a lot of drama. When I grew up, though, one of the things my dad did very, very well when I was a young adult, he was very vocal about protection. When he was not in a space where he could protect me anymore, one of the things that in fact, he does this with all of my siblings, he would say, I remember I moved to Cape Town and then I would go back home often. And I think my dad was worried because a lot of young people were passing away because of HIV. And he would say, Mntanam, I know when I was petty, but always remember to protect yourself because we don't know where these guys are coming from. What was different about his approach was that he was not shaming me or trying to shame me for potentially dating, but was saying, I trust you as my daughter. I trust you that you can take care of yourself. I trust you. But just to be safe, make sure that you protect yourself in particular ways. And also what my dad was very good in doing was when I get back home, and at any given point, will say, you are very smart, very smart. And I did that intentionally to teach you to be intelligent because I don't want these guys to play you. So if they don't love you, check them out and move on because you are that smart and you can be anything that you want. There's something that's very powerful about a word that comes from your dad. Very powerful because what it does, it sets and it makes it easy for you to stand when other men come true to you. soon after a breakup, because there was that didn't verify me, it did, but as a father, find your way as a dad to bring your daughter close to you and verbalize your lessons to them. That presence is going to take them far. I just want to check comments and questions, see if there's anything. Okay, no comments as yet this morning from the page. I'm going to bow out and say, teach your daughters verbally. Let your presence be the bigger lesson, your presence. And when you present, do activities with them. Sitting and not talking and just being in the house is not presence. It's just you being in the house. Presence means doing practical things and activities with your daughters. And 3, have conversations with your friends, your male friends, because you can't protect your kids from your friends or from your male acquaintances without verbalizing that protection for them. You know? And it doesn't mean that you don't trust your friends, but it means that in every 5 women in a room, 4 of them have been molested, and they were molested by men, and those men could be in the community of your friends around you. So more men need to verbalize the protection of your kids. You need to verbalize it. You need to verbalize it. How are we going to protect our daughters? You guys need to verbalize it to each other. You need to talk about it. How are we going to protect our daughters? And also, should a violation happen, how are we going to take it further? Because it can't be that these men who molest your kids are unknown and blank individuals. You know them. Your kids might not talk, but you know them. And by virtue of your kids not talking, it means they are well groomed by these guys. And as such, you must intervene in that space. No 2 ways about it. You must intervene in that space. This is me bowing out because I wanted to drop this conversation with you, gentlemen. And let me just check my page for any comments, any questions. And I'm going to see you tomorrow. What I'm going to do is because now at least I'm growing and being consistent with these conversations. I wanted to grow or move into a space where there's consistency. And then I'm going to start drafting topics that are going to assist you. Let me check the comments from the Facebook page. It says, I can attest to this coach. My grandfather was that kind of a man who affirmed us. He would make a noise about our natural beauty. Whenever we had braids, he would ask, why is Cindy Sangezinwele? And when we take them down, the world would make a noise about our natural hair. Yes. Thank you, Zanele. Thank you, Zanele. Thank you, Pumzile. Upigo says, I know it's hard for us as fathers to even imagine our daughters dating or even worse, being molested, but that is maybe we need to actively take part in educating our kids and protecting them, not just to wish. So, in closing, gentlemen, when it comes to having these topics with your daughters, I think there's a certain fear that when you talk about a particular topic with your kids, you might be encouraging it. This was something that was said by Ofosoms last week, that when we talk about certain topics, our fear is that we might be encouraging our kids on that topic. That's not true. Or that's a fear that our mothers and grandfathers and our previous ancestors had because of their socialization. But in this era, when we talk about certain topics, and no matter how uncomfortable they are, we make it easy for our kids to know, oh, so what that guy did was not right. Oh, so what that man said to me was not right. I must then talk to my dad because, or my dad, because then my dad would know what to do. The danger we are sitting with is that kids are not talking about how they were molested by men. And it could be a very, very close family member or a very, very close friend. They're not talking because they don't think what was done to them was wrong. they don't think was wrong, because what groomers do, they make the child believe or make the child be part of the act in such a way that it becomes impossible for the kids to talk. And then ignorance and innocence plays a role, because then the kids think that's what people do in this world and it's okay. Whereas when you talk about certain topics in a candid way, you are saying to your child, this is what happens in this world around us. It is not proper at a certain age because you're still young, but I need you to have this information so that at the right age, you can trust me to ask me any questions that you need. Or whatever happens in the world around you when I'm not there, you can trust me and come to me so that we can tackle this thing together. In closing, one of the things my dad also did, which I really appreciate. My dad was a drinking person. He was the life of the party, and he was I know, we have club hoppers. My dad at some point was a shipping hopper. He'd go from one shipping to the next. So the monk cooler, I think around 15 years of age, I remember he went to this new shipping for N11 that we didn't know, and we just moved in that community. And he again wanted to buy something beers, so we would go and buy beers sometimes from the shipping and would do that often. Then this one time, I went to buy. He sent me. My dad was he was a very strict man, so not the kind of person you can just really say no to come to me. So we would go as to New when he sent us to buy stuff for him. So this one time he sent me to buy a beer in this new shipping that we just moved in this area. I think we had been there for 3 months or so. So we were not known, and he was not known as yet in there. So when I was there in that shipping to buy beer, there was a man who Waiwang Banza. I don't know Banza is called, and this is English. I think he hit my palm, this man. I didn't know, and I think I was around 15, 14 years of age. And for the first time, I was scared to be in a shipping setup. So when I got home, I said to my dad, I'm not going to that shipping again. And I didn't tell him what happened. I said to him, I'm not going to that shipping again. For some reason, he understood, and he never sent me to buy him beer again, ever. Never, ever, ever, until I left after matric. I left that community. He never asked me, because men know what men do. But in this era, I need you guys to talk to your daughters about what men do. You're not bad mouthing men, you're equipping your kids with knowledge. One of the things that play a lot in the teen pregnancy space is that older men prey on young girls, because young girls do not have the resolve to say no to them, or they cannot tell that when they're being coerced into doing something that is against their will and their bodies. The kids cannot tell. And also kids cannot fight the men off. Emotionally, they are not there, and also mentally, they are not there. So older men or older boys tend to prey on little girls the most because of that. If you find a 10-year-old pregnant, if you find an 11-year-old pregnant, if you find a 12-year-old pregnant, most of the cases, people who impregnate them are those who are 18 years old and above, your 25-year-olds, because the kids are not at a space where they can protect themselves. And this is why we need to be the ones who play the role. I think when we talk about teen pregnancy, we talk about these girls. We are not talking about how can fathers protect their daughters more from the men around you, because often it's not complete strangers. Have a wonderful afternoon. Oh, have a wonderful morning and a wonderful day. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you, Pico. Pico Lomsi for those comments as well. And yes, onwards we go. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day.